Where's my, oh, we're up. You're live.
Okay.
We're live. Wait, let me get my phone, since we're doing Facebook Live, and I can go see it. If you're live now.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Wallace. John Wallace.
Hi, David.
Hi, John.
I don't see it going live yet. Does it show live?
Julie's got it.
Somewhere on my, oh, you're seeing it live? Is it working? My Facebook may just, you know, because I'm older, may just be slow.
Gig up.
I'm John Wallace. I work with Union Home Mortgage after Verizon and Fifth Third, Carter Wallace Mortgage for years. And Bright Mortgages, that's what we do. We finance homes. Know David for more than 20 years, both as a prior client and many clients together and helping people buy and sell and fix homes. And this is right now we're in a market still where there are 6 buyers for every home that's available on the market. But doing lots of little things that don't have to cost as much as I'm replacing the entire kitchen, or brand new granite countertops, those kind of expensive things. There's lots of little touch-ups and things you can do along the way to prepare for your house to not only be at a better listing price, but to move quicker when you are ready for it to sell. And that is what Dr. Dave Hammerschmidt, not quite Dr. Dave yet, but Dave Hammerschmidt is here to talk about today. Come on, Dave. Come on up.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you everybody for coming in tonight. We're here at the Maud Preston Library, and we're also live on Facebook. So it's the first time I've ever done that. Makes it a little more nerve-wracking. But thank you all for coming in, and help yourself at any time to cookies and coffee and candy we've got over here. In the end, we're going to have a drawing for a Lake House gift certificate. It's either $50 or $100. I really don't know, so it'll be a surprise for you. But we'll have a drawing at the end, and thank you, John Wallace from Union Home Mortgage. We also have Lori Brink from Union Home Mortgage here tonight, so when we're finished, we'll have question and answer time if anybody wants to come up and talk to me or talk to a good lender. We've got 2 really awesome lenders in the house tonight. So thank you all for coming in. I'm David Hammerschmidt with At Properties. I am from St. Joe, just live a few blocks away, and I've lived here pretty much my whole life. I've been selling real estate for 20 plus years. Hard to believe. John has been too, so we've known each other a long time. And I was with another company for about 18 years and just recently switched to At Properties. And a lot of people tell me, well, we haven't really heard of At Properties a whole lot. So just a little bit about that company. We're on Lakeshore Drive in St. Joseph, kind of by Maiden Lane in the old All-Phase Supply building. And I've been there for maybe 4 or 5 months now, so it's a big change. They originated in Chicago about 20 years ago, maybe 18 years ago, and slowly kind of creeped their way around the lake, and we have an office in New Buffalo, and now in St. Joe, and I think the one in St. Joe's been there for 4 or 5 years. And lots of great people work there. I'm very happy to have made the change, and very excited and kind of refreshed with a new real estate company, and been very busy. So the market, like John said, is really kind of crazy right now. There's lots of buyers. A lot of times we see it kind of more of a seller's market lately, where we'll list a house and we'll get lots of offers on a house, and very competitive market. We're seeing our typical seasonal slowdown a little bit right now, but expect things to stay busy right through the end of the year and even through the holidays. And as a matter of fact, last spring, things really fired up extra early. So I kind of see that maybe happening again this spring market, maybe starting spring market in January or February again, like we did last year. What I want to talk to you about tonight is just a little bit about what you can do ahead of time to prepare to sell your house maybe down the road, whether it's a week down the road or a year down the road. What I really enjoy doing is meeting with families and people that are thinking about selling, really not too sure what to do. They have me over, and every situation is so different. So sometimes I go over and they're ready to list right away. The house is ready. They've done everything they thought they should do to get the house prepared, and they're ready to go. And sometimes people just kind of want to know maybe what they could be doing to help the house sell better. Maybe they have questions about the sale process, or they just want to know what they should be doing to prepare, and maybe that's for, a year from now. I work with people that are just thinking about it and maybe aren't ready for quite a while to actually hit the market. So one of my favorite things to do is to meet with people in the home and take a look at what your personal situation is and give advice on what you could be doing to help get the home sold. And what my ultimate goal always is to get as much money as I can for every one of my customers. So it's not about me coming over and giving you instructions on how to spend all your money to get your home ready. I try to keep it as simple as I possibly can and spend actually as little as I can, giving you tips and ideas to get the house ready so that when you are ready to sell, you're prepared, ready to go, and if it sells quicker, then you'll always end up getting more money for your home, and that's what we all want. So the other thing tonight is if you have any questions in the room, please fire away at any time, because although it might not seem like it, I'm really nervous, and questions help move things along a little bit. But as we go, okay, got a question in the back there?
Yeah, you said, well, I know that the market in St. Joe was really good right now.
Mhm.
When did you see that kind of coming up? It seems like it just, kind of exploded.
Kind of happened fast.
when did it
Yeah.
happen?
So for the longest time, the market was, I wouldn't say bad, but it was different because we had, we went through the downturn and we lost value and there were foreclosures and everything was kind of very different for everybody for several years. New construction stopped. I would say within the last 2.5, 3 years, it is like somebody clicked a switch. We started to see a lot less foreclosures. We started to see the new construction start again. We still have fantastically low interest rates. And I think what maybe happened is just kind of the fear that everybody kind of felt during the downturn faded away a little bit. And inventory started to come back. And then the next thing you know, we went from being a buyer's market for all those years to overnight, really, people fighting over houses.
The economy recovered enough from the collapse, and people in general felt secure enough in their jobs, and we also had a lot of people who lost everything. I mean, a large number across the country who lost everything in that collapse. Well, you go from 2008 and 2009 and 2010 when that happens, and 4 or 5 years later, they're ready to get back in the market again. But during that collapse, we lost a lot of home builders, and there weren't a lot of new homes being built. So as the economy in 16 and 17 got better and rates continued to remain, relatively low. When I first started in this business, it was 11.5%, and I remember 18% from my parents, and we're still in the 4s generally now. And we had mild winters. If you start this year, both winter last year in January and February and this year was very mild. And we've had a very mild fall. October got very busy for home buying season again.
Yeah.
Because people had, there was this mentality among home buyers, a lot, that because of the collapse and foreclosed homes and the TV shows we all can watch on flipping, that I could go in and steal a house. I can underbid and I can ask the seller to pay for everything and I'm just going to get this great bargain. Well, there are so many buyers on the market that that's not happening at all. So, for instance, in our office, we're seeing people who've been looking for and bidding on houses since April, May, June, July, and August. School starts in September, so everybody slowed down for a second. And then in October, they went, the Fed's going to raise rates next month, probably.
Jump in.
That's not necessarily a direct impact on mortgages, but it has some impact. And folks who are selling, in general, especially if it's an empty, do not want to carry it through the winter. So all of a sudden they go, I'm going to quit playing around and try to steal a house, and I'm going to find the right house for us.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are finding as they're re-entering the market that inventory is good, but it's a little bit it's a little tight in some price ranges. And so the buyers kind of have to not fight over houses, but it got a little bit competitive. That started driving prices back up. And sellers started to notice prices going up. I can't tell you for how many years I would go around and actually give out bad news. You know, people lost the value in their home and they wanted to sell, but they couldn't. Maybe they were upside down, or maybe it just wasn't worth as much as they wanted it to be. And now that's totally changed. So the prices are back up. People are deciding to sell, and there's been buyers, I think, pretty much consistently through even the downturn. There were a lot of buyers, whether they were investors or flippers or first-time home buyers. There was a lot of different programs that were helping the market kind of stay afloat. And in this area, I've always said we're maybe a little more insulated than some of the bigger markets because of tourism, because of being such a couple of small school districts and so many good-paying jobs. We definitely had a downturn, but you know, we're somewhat buffered from the real bad stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad. In terms of, you know, I'm thinking about listing my house. I'm not sure, at my age, for instance, we've already downsized, but you know, we're empty nesters now, so the downsize may be coming. I don't need 4,000 square feet, for instance, or, you know. How important on a first look is decluttering, do you think?
Well,
before you even get it on the market, because that's a hard thing for a lot of us to do.
It is, and that's why I wanted to talk about that tonight. One of my favorite things to do is when I meet with people that are thinking about selling, every situation that I go into is very different. A lot of people, I think, especially elderly people, it's kind of a niche market for me because I love helping in those situations. A lot of times maybe they have a lot of stuff, maybe they've been in the home for decades, or you know, it's the family home, or maybe there's siblings involved in the situation. But I go into each situation and counsel with them on how to declutter and how to kind of prepare the home. Again, not spend a lot of money, but things that you can do in advance so that when it is time to sell, it's that much less stressful, it's that much more ready to go on the market. And the more prepared and the more ready a home is, the more money you're going to get for it. So it's not like, you know, remodel the kitchen and remodel the bathroom. I've got to be, you know, really careful about the advice I give because I don't want to spend the money and then they don't get it back necessarily. So on TV they make it look really glamorous, but that's not the real world. A lot of times I'll go in and talk to them about decluttering. From maybe kind of a staging perspective. If you're going to move, then it's perfectly fine to start packing ahead of time. And I'll have them, you know, maybe fill the garage or fill the basement or have a sale. A lot of times I'll help coordinate the sale. I work with people that can help with that. Or maybe things in the house that I see that would help better with the appraisal or safety issues from an inspection standpoint. So as I go into the home and I talk with different customers, I'm looking for all those little tiny things that can be done just through experience that I know are going to help with the sale or with the appraisal or with the inspection. Sometimes it's, you know, maybe a little bit of painting. Sometimes it's maybe taking out carpets to expose beautiful wood flooring.
Yeah.
Sometimes houses are just full and Aunt Betty, the crazy cat lady, is, you know,
Or Julie.
And so every situation is very different. But my goal, the way I go about it, is looking at what are all the little things we can do ahead of time, really to make the sale process a lot less stressful. And the more time you have to prepare for that, the better it's going to help.
Well, it also ties into knowing your buyers too, because let's take again that St. Joe Stevensville market, your standard 1,800, 2,000 square foot ranch, right? You'll see price ranges from 140 to 250, and that's not because there's acreage. You know? So, you know, if my house, and I have one of those 1950 post-World War II ranches kind of houses, if I've got family pictures well, taking those down to declutter means you got to paint and fill up the holes. That's not something that you necessarily want to do. But those ones that are in the upper end, if you've got buyers, and there are a lot of home buyers out there that we call them turnkey. I want to get my keys when I close, and I want to walk in, and I don't want to have to do anything. Then there's the buyers who go, you know, I don't mind if this kitchen and bathroom hasn't been updated yet, because I'm going to be here 5 to 7 years, and I can buy it for $150 now, and when I'm done, you know, markets as they go, I should be back up in that 200 range, and I can get my money back. Plus, I'm creating the kitchen and bath that I want. So, you know, as David said, you start watching the shows, and you start looking at the houses that are on the market right now that are priced well and move quickly. It's nice pastel, white, beige, gray kind of colors. We don't have any 1970s purple going on, or, you know, shag carpeting. There are so many houses these days where you go in and you go, there's a beautiful wood floor underneath this.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it may need to be sanded and refinished, but or maybe not. But
Grandma doesn't know. Because
No.
Grandma likes the shag.
well,
That's
because
a, that's
it
a
was
real,
built back then.
yeah, and that's a real simple thing that I see a lot. And again, it's not about spending a lot of money to totally change the house. It's about helping get what you have sold
In the right, get it in the right shape.
and yeah, get it in the right shape. I don't know. For me personally, I deal with a lot of entry-level buyers that are maybe looking to do some of those things to build equity. And I work with a lot of elderly people that have maybe been in the home for a long time, and it's just kind of a nerve-wracking situation for them. So being able to help through that process, and a lot of times, like I said, I deal with family members, or you know, it's an emotional situation, and so I really love helping people through that process. And again, whether it's a year from now or whatever, it's not just about going over to price the home. It's about that whole process of helping them get to that point and be ready for it.
Yeah, and how the home is marketed too. That's one of the great things about App Properties. And App Properties, if you know, they're #1 in Chicago. They're now the #1 broker in Southwest Michigan. Last year they were #2 overall and #1 for lakefront $1 million plus homes. But they don't outsource their print and advertising and marketing to some third-party company. It's all internal.
Yeah.
And if you go into one of the houses that they have, that anybody at Properties has listed in this region, there's some beautiful four-colored glossy books.
Yeah, we have a
there.
really great marketing department, and I can pretty much ask them for whatever I need, and it's created for me. We use all professional photographers on every listing. So there is that niche, the higher end houses that are totally ready to go. But you know what tonight is more about is just mom and pa, you know, and getting ready to get the home sold. And a lot of that is, you know, in town here, a lot of these older homes need that more than some of the other price ranges that I work in. I sell commercial and businesses and residential. I work in all aspects and all price ranges of sale, you know, of real estate. But tonight's more about how to get that every day. How, you know, my house would need the same thing. We live in it. I have a kid, dogs. It's not ready, and so that's where I want to come in and help people, you know, get to that point to be ready, so that it is easier and less stressful for them and their families.
We just sold my grandparents' house, which was, again, one of those 1950s. It wasn't a Sears kit, but it was like that. They built down in Buchanan on Berkshire Road. And my grandparents had been gone for a while. But they were getting ready to put the house back in the market this summer. And the 1950s oil furnace with the big tanks in the basement was still there. There was some standard for cinder block. There was some cracked paint and some mold here and there. Not serious mold problems, but you know, just Michigan basement kind of stuff. But altogether, replacing that furnace, having the propane tank installed out back and running lines, dehumidifying and getting rid of that mold in the basement, and then painting the basement walls and removing some carpet, not much, upstairs in the house, they spent $10,000. And they were hoping to sell it for $90,000, because my aunts or uncle and my mom, they're California and Washington, D.C. kind of folks. They don't understand Michigan pricing at all. It sold before it was even listed for $145,000. You know, and they only spent $10,000 doing it. Now, you know, they're also partially retired and up in years and have assets and have means to do those $10,000 kind of things. But those basic painting is not expensive, it's time consuming. And one of the things I talk to people about on a regular basis, particularly if they're a little older and getting ready to list the house, or the kids are about to get the house and put it on the market, is how many folks do you know at church? How many retired guys do you know, and women too,
That can
who
help.
would love to come volunteer and help you do that
Mhm.
stuff, help you declutter, help you paint, maybe we're fixing a little trim here and there. You know.
Or even your lender or your realtor.
Yes.
Because honestly, I love doing that too.
Or my wife will do the
And
landscaping.
it's
you know.
hard not to jump in sometimes and just kind of get involved with
And
the whole
you'd be
process.
surprised how much that curb appeal, just some cleaning up of
Yeah.
the yard,
Yeah.
de-weeding, adding some right
Edging
flowers
the
in there.
sidewalks, plantings, or just some baskets, hanging baskets, seasonally, maybe decorating a little bit. So that's really what it's all about. It's helping people kind of get to the point where it just makes the transaction better. There's every transaction is so different. I always say it's so much more than just putting a sign in the yard. Every sale has a lender, a buyer, and a seller, an appraiser, a home inspector, a pest inspector, a list a mile long.
Well, and septic inspector in some areas.
Yeah. There's and when you get 5 or 10 of those going at the same time, it can be it can cause you to get some gray hairs for sure. Some more than others.
Yeah, just a little.
So it's really important to make sure that for the customer, they're not feeling that pressure or that stress. That's where having experience like a good lender or maybe a good realtor could just make that process a lot smoother and a lot more consistent. And that's what I love. I love knowing how things are going to happen and how it's going to work ahead of time so that I can use that experience to make things go smoother for my customers, because that's my ultimate goal.
Well, and even now, for instance, we're in that period of the year we finally turned the furnace on. First it was the fireplace, now it's the furnace and the fireplace. We all ought to be getting our furnaces checked. So, just getting your mechanicals checked so you know what that is before you get to listing, so it doesn't come back afterwards and now you have an inspection and say, hey, this unit's not going to last or it's bad, or the roof. We see a lot of roof issues.
Yeah, I mean,
here
every
and
once in a
there.
while I run into a situation where there is something major. I went and looked at a house the other day that has a hole in the roof, and the bathroom ceiling had fallen in.
Yeah.
They don't have the means to fix it, so we're gonna work with them, and we're gonna try to figure out ways to help get the house ready, because the way it is, it's not financeable. So every situation is very different. And what I would like people to take away from tonight is that there are realtors and lenders out there that can help and take away the stress and pressure and get things going. Yes, question over here?
If you have a limited budget, and let's say it's an estate, it's a family estate, and the kids have a limited budget to put in, and it's kind of dated, what do you feel would be the most important things to do? Of course, the common things like painting and pulling up some carpet. But let's say it's a kitchen that's really dated, a bathroom that's really dated. I mean, what do you feel would sell the home faster for a higher price in home improvements in that level? Would it be like a bathroom? Is it the kitchen? Is it the manland cave basement? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It does. It really
Okay.
depends on the budget of the seller, and every home's worth something. So even the house without the bathroom ceiling and a leaky roof is worth something, and I need to work with that seller to find out
Is that
what.
when you would come in?
Yes,
To
find out what the goal
on
is.
like a first appointment or something, to come in and
Yes.
take a look at that home and say, if you only have $1,000 in
Yes.
the family budget between the 4 kids.
I run into
This
that
is-
all the time.
This is what,
Yep.
get.
That's where I
allocated.
feel like I'm actually helping the most, because,
Right.
if the budget is very limited,
Right.
there
And a
are
lot of
lots of
times it
things
is.
there are lots of things we can do on a very limited budget. When people have more money, then the goal is to find out, based on the market and the market analysis that I do, is redoing that kitchen going to be worth it? Is it going to improve the value of that home
Right,
that
you
much
can
more?
spend a lot of money.
Well,
Just,
and that's
you
the
don't
thing.
wanna move.
It's an investment. Yeah,
Come on,
exactly. Well, that's a whole
Thanks
other
for helping us
story.
fix the kitchen
Yeah,
today, we're
yeah, that's
staying.
good.
Yeah,
That's
a lot of
different.
times that happens where I give people the list
Yeah.
and go back 6 months later and it's done,
And they
they're
love
like,
their house.
oh, why didn't we do this years ago? Because it's so nice now. And that's funny. It
So
happens
how
a
does
lot.
that process go for you then, David? I mean, when, let's say that my sister would reach out to you to call you in regards to coming over to my parents' estate, how
Uh-huh.
would you work that then with us?
Well, like I said, every situation's different. So,
So do you set up an appointment with us?
You
and then
call
go-
me and we make an appointment. The other thing to know is it doesn't cost anything. So that consultation, helping get the house ready, me doing the market analysis and actually pricing the home and giving, all that information doesn't cost anything until the home sells. So I work with lots of people through that process. Like I said, sometimes over a couple of weeks and sometimes over a year or more. We come up with an individual game plan, what to do, how we're going to do it, how affordable is it, how much is the home worth, and then once we get closer to actually listing the house, we'll make sure that we're priced right based on the current market. It's not only what has recently sold, that's what an appraiser will look at, but what I also look at is what the market is doing today. What are we competing with? What type of market are we entering? And then pricing that home right so that it does sell and it does get you as much as I can. So every market is different, times of year are different, things change, but that consultation where I come over and I meet with you and go through the home and find out what you have done and come up with that game plan, what needs to be done, and then what your timeline is.
And then when you sell it, we'll go to John and do our mortgage.
Get your mortgage,
Actual
yes,
thing, right?
yeah.
Wouldn't that be perfect?
Well, and
In
it's
an ideal
awesome to have-
world.
I'm
When it
so-
sells, it'll go to whoever's financing the buyer, because,
Right.
Right.
there's a number of great lenders in the area. And,
Right. But
And
then
I-
you
I'm-
wanna
not that we
reinvest.
wouldn't love the business.
I'm
but-
thrilled to have John up here with me today because he is one of the best lenders in the area.
It also keeps you less nervous.
And I really appreciate that. It's a lot less nerve-wracking. But when you're going to enter the market or you're thinking of entering the market, it's very important to work with somebody that is experienced like John or myself because we know how to get through that process with you. And we're not in a rush for that quick, easy sale or that quick, easy mortgage. We're all about, I know John spends a lot of time with buyers prepping them to be able to qualify for that mortgage, or maybe that better mortgage, or that lower rate. And I know you spend a lot of time working with my customers to get them ready to get to that point. So there's a lot of prep work, but again, it's all about making the process better and easier and more efficient for everybody. So having me over, having that appointment,
Cool.
it doesn't matter if you're ready or not. Sometimes people just want to know, what's my house worth? And that's free and it's fun. I love it.
And just in that, it's better to have David, a professional come out and do that market analysis, because the data you'll see, for instance, out at Zillow or Trulia is not always accurate.
Correct.
By any means, particularly when it comes to property taxes and those kind of things. If a home is actually listed on the market and has been sold, it's got an offer on it, Zillow and Trulia won't say that. It drives all of us nuts, because people call and say, hey, I saw this house, I want to go see it, and we go, it's sold.
Right.
But that shows on the Michigan system, it doesn't show on their system.
Right. Well, and another important part of this is, a lot of times I go over to list a home and people have already spent lots of money doing what they thought was necessary and maybe didn't spend it so wisely. So that's another reason to have somebody over ahead of time to come up with that game plan and make sure that if you are going to spend, it's spent the right way.
Well, and again, it's like that 1,800 or 2,400 square foot ranch in Southwest Michigan, right? There's a spread. And when David does his analysis, he's not going to go in and say, well, we can get $240 for your house with a kitchen and bath in 1978, but there's a range for those, and there's a range for ones that have been updated, and figuring out what makes sense and what you can afford. I know I had a closing for a couple 2 weeks ago in Bridgman, and they had been watching this house on the market for 2 years because their son's best friend lives in the backyard and it has bigger square footage, and they needed 4 bedrooms for the kids and that kind of thing. Well, the house sat on the market for over a year, had no offers, and the sellers were a little older and had already moved out. And they finally went, okay, the reason we're not selling is because we haven't had these updates, and there's a leak in the garage related to the cement, and it's a house that's a full 2 acres too. So they took it off the market, and they did spend 6 months, redoing floors, painting things inside, fixing the driveway and the cement there, sold in a week. So it just depends, and if you got the right buyer who wants to do that, there's one in Fairplain that sold earlier this year for like $92,000. And an engineer at Whirlpool in his spare time went in and completely gutted it, completely remodeled it. And we're talking Fairplain, Benton Township, sold it for $175, 7 months later. So,
That's a good neighborhood over there, right, Lori?
Well, it is great.
Yeah.
Fairplain has not only some affordable houses, but
Yeah.
very reasonable property.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
So, it's all just relative and depends on and Lori and I have a client right now who came to see me in April and wanted to refinance and went, you're gonna have to do this, 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 and this to this house before I'm gonna send an appraiser out there, or you won't get what you need.
Right.
And she did it, and we'll go close in about 10 days.
Any other questions out there from anybody? Okay, in the back?
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
And since I have 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
So again, in St. Joe, I know, things kind of went way up. We're in Lakeshore.
Uh-huh.
Same
Is
thing.
that, it doesn't feel comparable, at least where we are. We're on Ridge Road.
Mhm, yeah.
And there's a lot of houses for sale, and they're all really different. And they've just been sitting there, and I don't know
Sure.
if they're priced too high or what the deal is.
It's more of a unique area in there,
Uh-huh.
and so there's a lot of variety in styles and prices. There was a house on, I think, just down the road from you that was remodeled very nicely and kind of sat on the market for a while. A lot of times if you see something sitting out there too long, it's price.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes there's quirks about a house that are hard to overcome, but most of the time it's going to boil down to the price. And in that particular area, being kind of close to the lake, Tosie's is back there, some beautiful lake homes are back there. Prices are higher.
Elementary school, walking
Yeah.
distance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great spot. So maybe because it's a little bit more unique, it's a little tougher to price some of the homes in there.
Yeah.
That's really, I think, what it's
But
gonna
again,
boil
that's
down
where
to.
somebody like Ag Properties becomes a value, because a lot of those homes get bought by folks from Chicago,
Yeah,
which is where they're based.
sure.
In fact, Papa Tosie's, if you will, the farm, the 6 acres, I think it's 6 acres with 2 outbuildings and the soccer field and the pool, that's up on the market right now
Right.
for 1.2 million.
Yeah.
And I'm not carrying that much at the moment. It's not my price
Down
range,
the
but
street, and
there
that's
are
not
some.
our range.
Right.
Overall, though, for Lakeshore and Stevensville, there have been more houses going up in the Lakeshore area, newer houses over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
That development, aside from Harbor Shores, has been south of 94.
Right.
And the school district is outstanding, and those homes that are in more neighborhoods, for instance, off of Washington or off of Cleveland or behind the library, those are turning in general really quick.
Yeah, and that's, I guess 2 of the things, I don't want to be pessimistic, but we're just being cautious. is
Sure.
That in Stevensville, it seems like there's so much development that isn't keeping prices down. And then, like on our lot, we have across the street, there's the developments on the lake, but it's been eroding so much.
Right.
A lot of my neighbors over there say the
Lost
value
their-
is
the
dropping,
beach, yeah.
but that affects us too.
Yeah, that's a whole nother kind of,
Yeah.
like I said, it's a little more unique back there in the styles and price ranges.
Yeah.
But it's just about, it's about pricing it properly, looking at what you're competing with in that price range. And I always say you're entering a competition.
Mhm.
The advantage that you have is that you're entering the market after everybody else already has. And pricing it right can a lot of times help it get sold before some of the ones that have been sitting out there maybe a little bit overpriced for a while.
Right. And my second question
Uh-huh.
is, so what are some things, aside from redoing the kitchen and bathroom, like, what are a few simple things we can do besides?
Yep.
So we have, decluttering,
Yep.
doing just sort of those
Fresh paint.
basic.
So,
Yeah.
you got to limit the number of cats that you have.
Too dark.
Some of the simple things are the decluttering, but then also looking at each room individually and thinking, okay, this bathroom has a leaky faucet. This bedroom has a broken window. This kind of going through and making sure that everything's tidied up a little bit.
Yeah.
and then from decluttering to sort of staging. Not everybody can do that. It's not HGTV, but kind of setting up each room in a way that maybe is not what you're used to, but that just maybe shows a little bit better. In some homes, I'll even bring a decorator with me that will help set up each room that way and make it just a little more appealing. A lot of times TJ Maxx can go a long way toward, new rugs or pillows or whatever to help kind of spiff things up.
Accents on the wall
Yeah.
for $10.
Yeah.
I think if you know what your square footage is, okay, in general, somewhere you may even have an old appraisal that tells you what it is. Certainly the township knows, because that's how your
Right.
tax base is. But, you can also start to go out and look. It's not hard to find houses that have sold in your square footage within a couple of miles, right, in the past 12 months to 2 years, and go, what colors were they using? What did that look like? How did the room get
Oh, look at
decorated?
the photos online.
We can jump online and look and see
Yeah.
other houses, and like I said, that's part of your advantage.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And for those that are in
Yeah.
the market, as David can show you, because Dave has access to data that we
All
don't
that
have as
stuff.
lenders.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this square footage is priced here, and here's what their rooms look like. So now this is like being in a football game, and I'm trying to decide whether the cornerback's blitzing or I'm going to go off to the
Right.
right side and do an option. And if you do it room by room, it's not overwhelming. The other thing I would say is, for instance, right now, most of us have blinds or curtains up because it's getting cold out. We don't want the air going through our windows, depending on how old they are. When we don't have overcast skies, pull those down and off and see how bright the house
Yeah.
looks.
You know what I do a lot of
Through
times is
those
I hire
windows.
a professional window cleaner to come in and take the screens out and clean the windows, and you'd be shocked at what a difference just that would make. It really brightens it up. And so, like I said, every house is so different, but there's a lot of little things that you can do for not a lot of money to get a house ready. And a lot of times, like I said, every house is already worth something, and in this market, that something is sort of surprising good news for people already. So a lot of times you don't have to do a lot because the market or your home might be very desirable and sell quickly anyways. So
I know for our house, for instance, we probably have to replace the roof before we put it on the market. We have a bathroom to refinish in the basement that we took apart and haven't put back together yet, with jacuzzi tub sitting there. It's ready, But one of the things we did this summer was replace all the windows. Because it was only, they were 1952 windows. They were leaking like a sieve. And I think it cost us $6,800. It was only $6,800 for a house that has windows all the way around it in the garage. It wasn't that much money, but the value that adds to the house on resale,
Yeah.
will
people
certainly
love
add up.
windows. Right, so we have to suck it in a little bit, John. We're on camera.
Wow.
Before we wrap it up tonight, I want to thank everybody for coming out, and make sure that you help yourself to coffee and cookies, and then we have the drawing coming up, so make sure you signed in. The last thing I want to talk about real quick is At Property's new marketing campaign. We've got some buttons over here, and they just say love. I can see one over there. And at first I thought, love, come on, what are you talking about? Kind of corny. And I thought about it, and one of the owners of our company put out a video about it, and it was about, there's so many different types of love. And the one thing that I like to think about in what I do is I like being able to help people, and I think that is a great form of love. So what I'd like everybody to do is make a promise to everybody else in here that tonight or tomorrow we're gonna practice some random act of kindness and love toward somebody that maybe we don't know or we know that needs a hand or help. And let's do that. And what we'll get is it'll definitely make us feel better. But sometimes when we do those little tiny things, they sure can go a long way toward making somebody's day or really helping people out.
Absolutely.
So that's what I think our love campaign is all about. And let's make that promise to each other that we're all going to do something. We're gonna love somebody a little extra special. Okay. So if we're gonna wrap things up, and I want to thank everybody for coming out. And if you have any questions, feel free to talk to me afterwards. And like I said, we have Lori Brink, and John Wallace from Union Home Mortgage, if you want to talk about mortgages or something that, if you have questions for them, then we'll answer whatever you got. So thank you so much for coming in tonight to the Maude Preston Memorial Library. Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks for
And
coming.
we
Thanks
really
for watching on
appreciate it.
Facebook Live.
Yep. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.